Good morning. Thank you for joining today's presentation titled SPO Price and Vendor List Contracts and Cooperative Contracts. My name is Stan Motto with the State Procurement Office. I am your presenter today. Along with me, my assistants are Carrie-Ann Sasaki and Ronnie Correa. Today's training is covered by HRS 103D, HR Chapter 3-128, named Governmental Relations and Cooperative Purchasing. Today's topics are procurement definitions, cooperative purchasing and purchasing agreements, the SPO price and vendor list contract, the Form SPO 5, which is the request for purchase exception from SPO price or vendor list contract, Form 12, the vendor product evaluation form, the WSCA-NASPO, which stands for Western States Contracting Alliance and National Association of State Procurement Officials. We also will show a short video on this webinar explaining why WSCA-NASPO is such a good purchasing tool. We'll also will show you how to navigate SPO price and vendor list website. We also will include the premium savings package, which is offered through the WSCA Computer Equipment Contract number 10-01. So, our first poll question. The first poll question is, where is your office located on which island? If you're on Oahu, you press Oahu, Maui, Hawaii, Kauai, Molokai, or Lanai. I just want to take a survey to find out where our audience participants. I know last time we had a Molokai and Lanai, but I don't see any yet, but we do have from Kauai, some from the Big Island, and the majority from Oahu. We got one Lanai. We had one Lanai. Okay, good. So we got about 3/4 participants from the main island of Oahu, and I'm glad we have some participants from the neighbor islands. Second poll question, a very simple one. Did you take this workshop, this webinar? Is this your first time taking this course? If it's yes, press yes. If you have taken it before, press no. Well, it looks like the majority, this is your first time taking this course, and I appreciate your spending your valuable time taking this course and learn more about prices and vendor list contracts and cooperative agreements. So we got about 80% yes, and we have some people taking the course. Again, that's good. Nothing wrong with taking the course again for updates. Thank you. We're going to go over some procurement definitions covered under HRS Section 103D 801. Cooperative purchasing is when two or more entities combine their purchasing requirements to qualify for volume price discounts and operational administrative savings. I'll give you an example of cooperative purchasing by the State Procurement Office on behalf of the executive departments. We issued a solicitation for gas credit card services for the islands of Oahu, Maui, and Hawaii. All 20 CPOs from all the other jurisdictions had signed a cooperative agreement with the State Procurement Office CPO, and as a result, the SPO issued price list contract number 13-14 for gas credit card services with Aloha Petroleum on Oahu, Maui Petroleum on Maui, Hawaii Petroleum on the Big Island, including Kona and Hilo. We also did a separate solicitation for the island of Kauai, and that's price list contract number 11-05 with KAFN services. External Procurement Unit is a government entity outside of the state of Hawaii. Example, an external procurement unit would be the state of Minnesota, which is the lead state who took the lead to solicit computer equipment, peripheral, and related services under the WSCA-NASPO Cooperative Purchasing Organization. A local public procurement unit means any county of the state or public agency such as the DOT, Department of Health, the County of Maui, DOE, etc. Continuing in definitions, a non-profit private procurement unit is a non-profit health or human service organization such as Goodwill Industries and Lanakila Pacific. A public procurement unit is either a local public procurement unit or a state public procurement unit, and the state public procurement unit would be the state procurement office. Our next slide is regarding cooperative agreements governing statutes covered by HRS Section 103D 802. Basically, this statute states that a public procurement unit may participate, sponsor, conduct, or administer a cooperative agreement with other procurement units pursuant to the rule adopted by the Procurement Policy Board and an agreement entered into and between the participating procurement units. Cooperative purchasing may also include, but not limited to, joint or multi-party contracts. Cooperative purchasing agreements may also be exempt from preferences pursuant to Part X, HRS Chapter 103D. On July 19, 2012, our Chief Procurement Officer at that time, Aaron Fujioka, had issued a Memorandum of Agreement for Cooperative Purchasing. The MOA was signed between the CPO of the Executive Department and for each jurisdiction's CPO. This agreement will allow all jurisdictions to participate for future SPO price and vendor list contracts that are not mandatory. If the contract is going to be mandatory, then cooperative purchase agreements needs to be signed by the department head or chief procurement officers. The next slide is Cooperative Agreements Governing Authority Admin Rules, HAR, Section 3-128. Cooperative agreements requires prior written approval by the Chief Procurement Officer. Must be in compliance with Chapter 103D except when a solicitation is offered by an external procurement unit such as the WSCA-NASPO organization. If an external unit such as the WSCA-NASPO organization does a solicitation, and if the state of Hawaii participates, the state of Hawaii shall be a participating entity in the WSCA-NASPO solicitation, and a public notice shall be posted within the state of Hawaii. As a reminder, agencies shall not enter into or piggyback onto any existing cooperative agreement. There are several procurement circulars. One is the Circular 2006-09 on cooperative purchasing compliance requirements, and it states that all cooperative purchasing agreements shall be in compliance with the requirements of HRS Chapter 103D, and each CPO with written approval is required prior to allowing agencies to participate and use any cooperative purchasing agreement. Regarding Procurement Circular 2009-10 on governmental relations and cooperative purchasing, examples of cooperative purchasing is the WSCA-NASPO contracts where the State Procurement Office coordinates these contracts with the lead state and enters into a cooperative agreement ensuring compliance with HRS Chapter 103D and its rules. This is again a reminder, agencies just can't piggyback onto an existing contract. I give an example. There's contracts issued by the U.S. Communities Organization and the General Service Administration, known as the GSA. These contracts have not been conducted in compliance with the HRS Chapter 103D, and therefore these contracts shall not be utilized. So basically, if you get a phone call and the vendor says, I can offer you GSA pricing, that pricing may not be honored by your agency as long as HRS Chapter 103D and procurement rules apply to purchases using the applicable procurement method and its procedures. So what that basically means is you can't just say, well, if you give me GSA pricing for $100, I'm going to buy it and that's it. You know, Chapter 103D applies, you can accept their pricing only if 103D applies. So if it's a small purchase, competitive sealed bid, make sure you get the required quotes, but it doesn't automatically give you a free ride just to get that quote and buy it. We're going to move on to the next poll question, number 3. And the question is, in the state of Hawaii, cooperative purchasing agreements are signed by the Chief Procurement Officer of the Executive Branch and who within other jurisdictions? 4 choices: Executive Director, Chief Procurement Officer, Business Manager, and Chief of Staff. Again, the state of Hawaii's cooperative purchasing agreements are signed by the CPO of the Executive Branch and with what other jurisdiction title? Executive Director, CPO, Business Manager, Chief of Staff. Great, the majority is CPO. If you selected CPO, that is the correct answer. For those who have not selected that, let's make sure that the department head is the CPO. So if you're with DOE, that person would be, the department head would be the CPO to sign the cooperative agreement. Okay. Thank you for that poll. Okay, so these are variations of cooperative purchasing agreements. So we got on one side called the lead, and on the right side it's called participating. What that basically means is who's going to be taking the lead to do the solicitation. And on the right side is the participating jurisdictions, who's going to be participating in this solicitation. The majority of our state procurement office price list and vendor list contracts falls under the first 2. For example, the first one says lead external procurement unit WSCA-NASPO participating as the SPO. So for that example, again, I like to use the computer equipment. The lead state of Minnesota took the lead, so they will be on the left side of Minnesota. And what they've done is they sent invitation to all 50 states asking who wants to do an intent to participate. And definitely Hawaii is one of them. They would sign an intent to participate, and they'll be on the right side, which is the participating side. Once the RFP goes out, and if all 50 states participate, they will be listed on that RFP. Once it's awarded, I believe this current contract, I believe had about 22 awarded contractors. I think we got 17 or 18 contractors that signed the participating addendum. So after they're awarded, a master agreement is signed between the lead state of Minnesota and each contractor. Let's say the contractor is Apple, IBM, CTL, Lenovo, one of those. Those master agreements are posted on the website. I will download that master agreement, and then the state of Hawaii, the state procurement office, would sign a participating addendum with each contractor, and if signed by the contractor and the state procurement office, we will issue a price or vendor list contract. In this case, it was the vendor list contract 10-01 for computer equipment, peripherals, and related services. Looking at the second line, the lead was SPO on behalf of the executive department, and the right side is the CPO jurisdiction. I gave an earlier example. The SPO did a solicitation on gas credit card services. The state procurement office was the lead. Cooperative agreements were signed between each jurisdiction who wanted to participate, and all 20, I believe, participated. And we had issued the gas credit card price list contract number 13-14 for Oahu, Maui, and Hawaii. The other 5, I won't go over. So basically, if you're an agency, if you're an executive department or a non-executive department, you can take the lead. Again, who would be participating with you, make sure the CPA is signed upon. The MOA is only enforced if the state procurement office is the lead. Okay, for the next slide, we discussed WISCA NASPO. We do have two other purchasing alliances, just for your information. One is called the MCPA, which is the Multi-State Corrections Procurement Alliance. We do have a prices contract for inmate kiosks. Everybody wants an inmate kiosk, but prisoners, they need to manage their money. It's like going to a banking machine ATM and they can deposit and withdraw money. So that's what that contract is for. We have another alliance with MCAP, MMCAP, standing for Minnesota Multi-State Contracting Alliance for Pharmacy. And that's basically for pharmaceutical distribution vendors. So I think probably the Department of Health probably utilizes that contract. Our next slide, Cooperative Purchasing Form SPO 37. This is the form that department heads or CPOs would be signing regarding cooperative purchasing agreements. It's the Form SPO 37. You need to contact our office for a copy. The cooperative purchasing agreements is completed on Form 37 and is pursuant to HR 3-128. There's a sample of an executed Form 37, which you can download from the training site. If you downloaded the PowerPoint presentation, there's another option. You can download that sample. You can take a look at it for your own viewing. If you have any questions, you can contact my office. What are the important components of the Form 37? Well, number one, you're going to describe the purpose. The effective date, is it for a year, 6 months? Does it have options for extension? The other one is, well, what is it? Are you covering auto parts, computer equipment, maintenance? You need to describe the goods and services being procured. Is this contract mandatory or optional? So basically, you need to do, it's either one or the other. You can't have optional or mandatory. It's either optional is permissive, mandatory is required. So you need to type that on the line 4. Term of contract is kind of like a replica of what is stated in line 2. Point of contact. If I have questions, who do I call? Phone number, email address, etc. And also the most important part, again, approved signatures. Again, department head, CPO signs the CPA. Okay, our next slide is regarding NASPO WISCA, NASPO Purchasing Organization. I'm going to do a poll question before we even start on this. Poll question number 4, yes or no answer. Have you purchased products or services utilizing the WISCA NASPO contract? Okay, remember now, if you didn't take this course, make sure you don't answer yes, because you're not supposed to be utilizing the contract if you haven't been trained on this webinar. So we have 80 to 90%. That looks just about right, because we were opposite on who took this course or not. So we really got good audience here that's following the rules. Okay, good. So basically, this is about 80 to 90% have not utilized the contract because you haven't taken this course. So hopefully you'll learn more about WISCA NASPO. Prior to the end of this webinar, we're going to show you a short video. We're not going to show it right now, but basically, what is WISCA NASPO? Yeah, okay. WISCA stands for Western States Contracting Alliance. NASPO stands for National Association of State Procurement Officials. And I believe sometime in the beginning of 2013, WISCA NASPO combined and formed the WISCA NASPO LLC to manage its National Cooperative Purchase Program. And how huge is this? I mean, it involves the 50 states the District of Columbia, 5 organized territories. So you can imagine if you go out to bid for a spark plug for 50 states, it's a lot of spark plugs that we buy for our vehicles. So that's how powerful this organization is. And one other thing is the NASPO-WSCA contract, when awarded to contractors, we need to ensure that the contractors are in compliance with HRS Chapter 103D and its rules. And that's stated in our participating addendum that they have to agree to. If they don't agree to it, we will not have them sign our PA and they can't participate. Our next slide, all authorized governmental entities in any state may use the WSCA-NASPO cooperative contract, the approval of the CPO. So the WSCA-NASPO is going to work through the State Procurement Office in regards to issuing price list and vendor list contracts. Your organization or your department can't work there with WSCA-NASPO. It's already been set up that it's going to be working directly with the State Procurement Office. For more information, you can go to their website, which is shown on the slide. Okay, this is an example of a listing of WSCA-NASPO contracts that we have available for participating jurisdictions to utilize. You can go over them. Hopefully, you're able to use one or more of those contracts, and if it's advantageous for your agency to utilize it, I highly recommend that you utilize it. Just to give an example, we've got a report back in 2010. The WSCA-NASPO had contract sales about $6 billion. It grew to $7 billion in 2011, $8 billion in 2012. An example for state of Hawaii, in fiscal year 2013, one of our larger contracts, such as computer equipment, we had sales of $30 million. We procured about $30 million of computer equipment utilizing WSCA, NASPO, and about $18 million with the computer software contract. Okay. SPO price and vendor list contracts. Who can issue price and vendor list contracts? And pursuant to HR 31216, only CPOs can issue price lists. Departments may issue requirement contracts. Which jurisdiction may use price and vendor list contracts? Only the jurisdictions which the CPO has signed a cooperative purchase agreement or with the MOA, Memorandum of Agreement. What is the difference between mandatory and permissive contracts? As I stated before, mandatory is required. You are required to utilize this contract if you are a participating entity. Permissive is optional. It's not mandatory. So if it's advantageous to utilize it, you may. If you don't use it, Chapter 103D applies along with the applicable procurement method and rules apply. What's the difference between price list and vendor list contracts? They're almost the same, except that price list contracts already have prices, such as I have a WSCA Auto Parts. Spark plugs are $1 each, whether you buy them in California or Hawaii. Those are price list contracts. Vendor list contracts are more like the computer equipment, where you have to submit your specifications. The vendor list contract just lists the pre-approved authorized contractors on that list that you can obtain price quotes from. There's no set pricing because the pricing depends on your specifications. So that's basically the difference between a price list and vendor list contract. And we use PL for price list and VL for vendor list contract. Well, what's the benefits? I mean, why should I use these price list contracts? Well, the benefits are the product or service is already competitively bid. It's done for you. The vendors are qualified. Must meet the standard specifications for the goods or services. Also, before being awarded a contract, the contractor must be HCE compliant, pursuant to Chapter 103D 310C. State Procurement Office always, and we try to do our best, to also monitor their compliance throughout the contract term. So those are the advantages. And I think another advantage that I have not written on here is when you have problems, and I'll get that with the vendor evaluation, if vendors don't comply with the contract terms and conditions, you run into problems, and you can't solve the problem, whatever it is, you can contact the State Procurement Office, and we can hopefully resolve through the Form 12, which I'll explain shortly. Okay, let's do another poll question here. Poll question number 5. Who is responsible to check vendor compliance status in Hawaii Compliance Express for price and vendor list contracts? So who's going to be responsible to check for compliance? Requesting agency, the secretary, state procurement office, business manager, or the supervisor. Remember now, these are for prices and vendor list contracts issued by the state procurement office. Who's going to be responsible to be checking for vendor compliance? Okay, majority is, the correct answer is state procurement office. Give yourself a hand. That's good. At times, if they're not compliant, please notify the state procurement office who manages the contract. I always get phone calls because HCE is live. You can be compliant today and not compliant the next hour. And a lot of times, agencies will call, hey, Stan, this is a heads up. XYZ Corporation is not compliant. Just a simple email, phone call message would greatly help, and we'll take action on our end to notify the contractor, and they must take action to return to compliance. My experience, they don't return to compliance, we remove them from the prices under this contract. They don't take it seriously, we do. So it's very important that the contractor is compliant in HCE. Okay, our next slide is what is the Form 5? Price list, vendor list, contract purchase exception. Okay, this form is used when the price list, vendor list contract issued by the state procurement office is mandatory or it's required. If the agency has a legitimate, justifiable reason why this contract is not advantageous to be utilized, Form 5 is completed. It's approved by the procurement officer with delegated authority to approve the Form 5. The form is not sent to the state procurement office for approval. Please keep the forms within your department, and whether it's approved or disapproved, the form shall be kept with the agency's procurement contract file. Examples of mandatory contracts on our list, we have the price list 1-15 for letterhead, envelopes, and business cards. Price list 1-21 for padded standard forms, 10-06 for newspaper publication. Price list 12-14, commercial car rental services. Understand that all approvals must be obtained prior to the purchase. If purchases are made after the fact without approval, it shall be processed as a procurement violation and submitted to the state procurement office on Form SPO-016. Okay. Move to the next. Form 12. Form 12 is called the Vendor and Product Evaluation Form. In a perfect world, you set up a contract for a widget, you order the widget comes to you on time, and you use the widget for your operational needs. However, there are times that widget might not meet your specification requirement. Example, you buy a ream of paper. Paper is arrived at your destination and it's soiled, it's damaged, or whatever. It can be equipment, office equipment, anything that does not meet the specification. What is the first thing you're going to do? Contact the vendor. Hey, I bought this widget from you and it's not up to our specifications, it's damaged. Can we have a refund or can we have a replacement? Vendor says, no problem, we'll take care of it. Great. Sometimes vendors will play hardball. I don't like him, he's not my good customer, I'm not going to bother helping him out. You call them, you email them, no action taken. Try to settle it with them. If no action is taken, the Form 5 is completed for product evaluation. Give us the whole story. We have to take action, and we'll contact the vendor, and hopefully they'll get or replace or refund your product. So that Form 12 will be submitted to the State Procurement Office. The other one is the vendor. So you bought the widget from the vendor. He doesn't call you back. Hey, where's my widget? I bought it, purchased, issued the PO, I ordered it last week. No response. 2 weeks goes by and he goes, oh, I'll take care of it. Nothing happens. Last resort, hopefully it can be resolved, but it can resolve. Fill out the Form 12, vendor evaluation, submit it to the State Procurement Office. We will take action, contact the vendor. Whether they respond or not, hopefully they do, and we have a happy ending. If not, I'll take them off the list. And if they're a WISC-NASPO contract, I will report it to the lead state, and that may jeopardize their contracts with all 50 states. And I don't think they want to risk one widget to risk all their business with all 50 states. Anyway, okay. So that's vendor and product evaluation. Form 12. Poll question. Number 6. Which SPO form is used to evaluate a vendor's product or service? And we have several choices. Form 5, which is the purchase exception form. Form 12, vendor product evaluation. Form 10, record of procurement. Or Form 16, procurement violation. Again, which form is used for a vendor's product or service for evaluation? And the correct answer is, boy, we're really good students here. Form 12. Just about everyone has answered that. Very good. Thank you. Okay. As I stated earlier, we're going to do a WISC-NASPO video. It's about 5 minutes long. When in practice session, it was very difficult to hear, so try to turn your volume up and listen to these 2 new employees hired by the government about procurement. Hope you enjoy this short video. I will come back on live when the video ends. Thank you.
Hello?
Hi, Dave. You called?
Oh, hello, Christine. Thanks for calling back. I just hired a couple of new people, and I wonder if you could take some time to talk to them as the state purchasing agent and give them an overview of the state procurement rules.
Well, sure, I can do that.
Oh, great. Thanks very much. I'll have them call your office to make an appointment. Have a great day.
So tell me, what do you think state procurement is all about?
Well, I think it's about buyers using all the sophisticated tools available to scour the internet. It's about getting the very best price.
Yes, this one. This is the one I've been looking for. Good job, Matt.
Thanks.
Here you go.
What's this?
More requisitions.
Okay, I'll take care of them.
Good job. Keep up the good work.
That's what it's about to me.
Well, okay, we could do that, but it might not mean best value. Best value includes other important factors, not just price, such as quality, delivery, service, warranty, and even past performance.
Do you really think you can find a better deal than the internet?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we can. When we work together to develop a master contract that leverages our collective buying power and our collective brain power.
So, how do you do that?
Well, the first thing we do is demand profiling.
What's demand profiling?
Demand profiling is when we look at historical purchasing information to figure out who's buying what, where they're buying it from, when they're buying it, how much they pay for it, and how much they're buying. We've found that the goods and services that we buy most often are the best candidates for a master contract.
We can see that as numbers increase, we may be looking for a contract in flooring services.
Makes sense. So what then?
Procurement professionals are pretty savvy and have an influence in the marketplace. With all the information from our demand profiling in hand, the next thing we do is a needs assessment. This helps us make sure we're going after the right goods and services. We also look for opportunities to standardize rather than buying a variety of similar goods. This helps us leverage our collective buying power and ultimately reduces the overall number of goods that require additional training, support, and repair.
What about communicating with your vendors?
That's really important to us. We sponsor vendor forums often so we can learn as much as possible about the commodity and about the merchants so we can better understand how the supply chain works to get the best possible value. All this collaboration, all the little things we do, such as a thorough legal review and a lot of very detailed research, helps put the state in the best position to stimulate competition and to get the best possible value. We do a price analysis to see what we should be paying for a commodity or service, and then we negotiate the best possible prices and other efficiencies to make sure the contract and supplier partnership works for everybody.
Wow, you can't beat that.
Actually, for some goods and services, we can.
You're kidding, right?
Nope, we can actually improve our savings by taking our collective buying power to the next level. Other states purchase many of the same things that we buy, which is why we are a member of the Western States Contracting Alliance, or as we refer to it as WSCA. This multi-state partnership lets us do everything I just talked about, but on a much larger scale. Last year, these WSCA contracts had sales of more than $3.5 billion.
That is impressive. But give me a little time and a speedy connection, and I'll bet I can beat some of those prices on the internet.
Maybe, but there are a few things that you should consider first. Like, are you getting the same quality products, the same service, the same warranty, the same delivery, the same return policy, the same insurance and all the other terms and conditions? So ask yourself, if it's such a great deal, why didn't the supplier win the contract in the first place? And consider this, buying outside the contract will reduce our collective buying power, and it could compromise our partnerships with suppliers. And finally, just think about how much it's costing the state if a lot of people spend their time shopping for a better deal when highly trained purchasing professionals have already done it for you.
I suppose you're right. Besides, I need a credit card, and I really doubt the state would trust a buyer with a credit card anyway.
Well, actually, WSCA offers a purchasing card or a P-card program that offers really good savings and efficiencies.
Well, what do you mean?
Well, it's a lot of work whenever the state processes an invoice. So rather than cutting a check to every merchant we do business with, it's much more efficient to issue a monthly payment to our P-card provider, especially for small dollar purchases. Also, the P-card gives us really detailed purchasing information, which helps us identify other contracting opportunities.
But how do you protect against unauthorized purchases?
Well, we can tailor limitations and constraints for every card holder depending on how they use the card. Plus, our P-card provider has sophisticated tools to monitor the use of a card right down to the line item purchases. If someone abuses a P-card, they can be held personally liable and even lose their job.
This has been great information. So as your customers, how can we help?
Well, the best way that you can help is to keep the lines of communication open. We really need to hear from you, and we especially want to know how our contractors are performing. What we learn from our customers like you helps us manage our contractors, and it helps us continue to give you the goods and services you need at the best value.
Well, I think this all sounds great. Are there any final thoughts you can offer us?
Well, as an important customer, just know that we work really hard to produce contracts that best meet our customers' needs and achieve the best possible value. By using state contracts and the WSCA contracts, you're strengthening our collective buying power both today and well into the future.
Okay, that is the short video. I hope you've learned something about the WSCA NASPO, why it's advantageous to utilize it. So moving on, I want to just do some questions. We have several questions that I would like to respond to. And one is, what is a widget? Widget is a term used in procurement. It can be a product. It could be an oil filter. It could be a cleaner or something. It's just a name. So that's what a widget is. This is an example. The other one is, what is defined as piggyback? Okay, so I'll give an example. Again, I think I said earlier, unless this organization has signed a cooperative agreement with the state of Hawaii and to ensure that they're in compliance with Chapter 103D, there is no alliance or contract we have. In this case, it was U.S. Communities or the GSA, General Service Administration. Unless if it's issued out of this office and anyone gives you a call and says, hi, I gave you GSA pricing. Well, what I'm saying is we don't have an agreement with the GSA. You can accept their price quote and utilize follow the 103D procurement policy and procedures in procurement, but we don't recognize them as an alliance. So that's what's called piggyback. You can't just go and piggyback because you may be telling the other agencies, hey, I got a great deal from GSA, just get one quote and, we can buy anything we want from them at cheap pricing. So that is not allowed, that is not authorized. If you have further questions regarding piggybacking, please contact my office. Good. We're going to go over a contract because there's a question that says, how can we tell if it's optional or mandatory? I will explain to you when it comes up. We're not, because I'm going to go over a sample prices for this contract. Okay, so we're going to continue. We're going to navigate the WSCA NASPO website. This is the website. You can go to www.aboutwsca.org. And we're going to go to the home page. And I just want to show you a listing where their contracts are offered to the state of Hawaii. So if we click on current contracts, it will show a listing of the contracts. So example, if you start from the very beginning, auto parts, we have a contract for auto parts, the AED defibrillators, et cetera, et cetera. So these are all the contracts. But the one that I want to take a look at, and I always spoke again about, is the computer equipment, peripherals, and related services. So let's just click on that. So here we are. The WSCA NASPO MM stands for Minnesota, the lead state. Sue Cowell, very nice lady. She's very busy right now because this contract is going to expire, I believe, in sometime August 2014. Again, the Lee State, thank you for them. They're doing an RFP for computer equipment, and hopefully the new awards will come out, and master agreements will be signed, and participating addendums will be signed, and we'll probably come up with a new prices contract in the end. So if you look at the inception and expiration, it was awarded back in September 2009. Expiration 31st of August, and options, extensions are all utilized. I want to share with you the Premium Savings Program. It is offered. Oh, here are all the awarded contractors. We don't have a contract with each one, but the majority of them. Then we go to Premium Savings Packaging. And I'm just going to take a little time on this and kind of give an explanation of what this basically is. Basically, the Premium Savings Package is, we have a team that solicits selective computer equipment with selective specifications, and to obtain the best pricing from contractors that are listed above that participate with better pricing than what's offered through the normal channels of WSCA. What I'm saying is, if you want to buy a desktop, whether you buy 1 unit or 1,000,000 units, it's the rock bottom price. And that's the great advantage of this offer of premium savings. Pricing. So for the standard desktop, the lowest cost is Lenovo at $619. So let's say you were very much interested in utilizing this contract. All you need is one price quote. You don't need 2 or 3 price quotes. Let's say you want to go to the lowest, or you want to go to the highest, or whatever it is. All you need is one price quote justified on the Form 10. Contact Lenovo, HP, Grace Global, or CTL. Get that price quote in writing. Make sure the price is the same. If it's not the same, let me know. And you're on your way to procuring whether it's 1 or 1,000,000 units. Let's scroll down. There's desktops. The next category is laptops. The next category is tablets. So at your spare time, don't be afraid. Go to Premium Savings and do your searches there. And if any of those computers meet your specifications, one quote is only needed. Okay. We want to go to the SPO website. We're running almost 60 minutes, so I'll try to rush through this. Basically, here's the website. Just go to the right. We're going to show you the forms. These are our forms that we had discussed earlier. Click on the form for state and county personnel. The Form 5, remember the request for purchase exception? That form is processed through your department and not sent to SPO for approval. And then we can show, okay. Then we can go to show Form 12. We can back out of that. Form 12. Evaluation for vendor product. Remember, this is the one where either the vendor gives you problems or the product is not to your expectations, to the specifications. Work it out with the vendor. Last resort, fill out the form and submit it to State Procurement Office for action. Okay. There was a question, what is mandatory and optional? So what we're going to do is we're going to go back and show you our prices vendor list contracts. Go to the home page, and under the home page on prices and vendor list contracts, on the drop down box, click 100, and you can just scroll down, and if you want to download or view any of these contracts, make sure you just click on the left side, and in this case, we're going to click 10-01. And this is a sample, that's not a sample, it is the contract 10-01 for computer equipment and peripheral services, peripheral and related services. So if you look at the top, these are the participating jurisdiction can utilize this contract. As we scroll down, go down to the next page. For all WISCO NASPO contracts, it kind of gives an info what this basically is, WISCO NASPO explanation. Go to the next page. Again, participating jurisdictions. Now, it says right there, participating jurisdictions listed below have signed a cooperative agreement with SPO and authorized to utilize the vendor list contract. And you read below that, it says the participating jurisdictions are not required, but may purchase from this vendor list contract. So basically what this states is this is a not mandatory, it's permissive, it's optional. You may use it or you may not use it. Okay. Why don't we get out of this one here? We're going to go to 10-06 for publication of public notices. And that priceless contract is mandatory, and I'll show you where it says mandatory. (10-06) for newspaper publication. So we see pretty much the same. This is not a WISCO contract. This contract was issued by the SPO. We were the lead. We did the solicitation on behalf of the controller because this is a statute. As we scroll down to the next page. Okay, before we do that, I just want to make sure that on this one here, it says the contract is started January 1st, 2011 to June 30th, 2015. The participation jurisdictions, right in the middle, it says listed below, are required to utilize this priceless contract and place their notices and ads in a primary newspaper for each island. So it says required, which means mandatory. It's not optional. And as I stated before, if for whatever reason you can't utilize this contract, you have to fill out the Form 5, which is an exception, and that is explained in the next paragraph. Exception to the priceless contract. An exception may be granted when the priceless contract does not meet the purchasing agency needs, and for this purpose, executive branch, department heads are granted authority to make the exception approval. Okay, so the Form 5 is signed, okay, and stays within the department's procurement contract file. Now, what do you do? I mean, if you're not going to utilize and you need a public notice. The next paragraph says, when the price list contract is not used, HRS Chapter 103D and procurement rules apply. So you have to, it to be a small purchase, competitive sealed bid. You have to use a procurement method to procure your public notice. Let's quickly go down as an example. You're going to see jurisdictions. These are your point of contacts. If you have a question, you go to them. If they can't answer it, you probably come to the purchasing specialist, which is on the executive department. Scroll down. These are the awarded contractors. So basically, this is just one example of the prices vendors contract. Please, each contract is different. It has its own personality. It has different instructions, number of quotes. Doesn't mean if you buy one spark plug, you can buy one can of paint. Okay, you have to go to each different price contract and read and read and read. And if you don't understand it, please contact the purchasing specialist that manages that contract for any questions you may have. We're going to move to the last page. On the last page, we have the contact information. I'm Stanton Mato, my number, Wende Bisui, Bonnie Kahakui, and Stacy Kaule Namoku. I hope I said that right because I got a scolding the last time. Anyway, reminders. Always use the most current price of vendor list contract available on the SPO website. So what you have on your file may not be current. Make sure you check the website because there may be changes. Changes always happen. So you want to make sure you get the most current contract that is available with the most current instructions on how to utilize the prices friendless contract. Number 2, read the contract in its entirety. Again, no two contracts are alike. They have different procedures, different number of requirements on price quotes. Make sure you contact the authorized vendors listed in the contract. I get phone calls and say, Stan, I want to buy a computer, and I called another vendor to get another price quote. Can I utilize that price quote? The answer is no. Once you leave and start going outside of what the contract instructions are, you're not utilizing the contract properly. After this webinar, please complete the question survey at the end of the training session. Oh, I have a question. If I have not answered your question, can you please forward it to me at my email address? I'll be glad to respond to your questions. This concludes our webinar for Prices Friendless Contracts Cooperative Agreements. I hope you have learned about utilizing our contracts.